Tom Aldrin, the present minister of this church, Unitarian since 1821, but for approximately 100 years, the first Congregational Church of Providence.
And so begins the story of the three churches, a slideshow originally presented by the First Unitarian Church of Providence in 1976 to celebrate the American Bicentennial. The slideshow, totaling 20 minutes, was constructed by the History Committee of the First Unitarian Church of Providence. With over 50 images, the slideshow chronicles the history of the three church buildings which the First Unitarian Church, formerly the First Congregational Church of Providence, occupied in the College Hill neighborhood of Providence. The storied history of the slideshow comes from the internal historical archives of the church and the Rhode Island Historical Society. Throughout the slideshow, we hear from church leaders of the 18th and 19th centuries, including Thomas Foster and E.S. Hitchcock. Fact production, the historiography of the church and its standing on College Hill, is told through the lens of wealthy white men who come from the most educated part of Providence society at the time. Together, these men catalog the experiences of creating the three church buildings that would house the parish in its history. We begin in the year 1723 with the construction of the first church building. It was a modest building on the corner of College and Benefit Streets in Providence. This building would be home for the congregation for decades before they erected a new building on the corner of Benevolent and Benefit Streets in 1794. This second building, wooden, painted, and meant to rival the beautiful Baptist church down the hill, would only last until 1814, when it was accidentally burned down by a parishioner. This would lead us to find the third and final church, which was finally established in the year 1816. The history that is told is one that neglects Rhode Island's storied history in the slave trade. When discussing the building of capital meant to fund the building of all three churches, the slave trade is not explicitly discussed. Historiography in this case is guided by a sense of self-affirmed social progressiveness, both on the turn of the 19th century when these documents regarding the first church houses were built, and in 1976 when the slideshow was being produced based around these articles. Around 1800, many members of the church belonged to abolitionist societies and attitudinally expressed disgust with the institution. Because of this, attitude would become conflated with practice in the 1976 retelling of the church history. The only mention of slavery in the piece comes with a somewhat separating narrative. We learn about E.S. Hitchcock, minister of the First Unitarian at the close of the 18th century, and how he had actually owned a slave named Caesar Hitchcock that he would eventually free in protest of the institution. The participation of church members in the Newport slave trade, though, is not underscored, leaving limited historiography to analyze. We must consider the audience, the church members in 1976 celebrating the bicentennial of the United States. We must consider, did this audience want to engage with the difficult past associated with the Providence community during its earliest years? Did the History Committee of 1976 want to bring down the mood of its church members while celebrating the bicentennial by bringing up slavery? Probably not. And to what extent does this omission of narrative lead to erasure, a veritable smudging of history? And what's more curious, how may we, in 2016, interact with this 40-year-old slideshow knowing that its facts were selectively curated?